Welcome to another episode of Off the Menu. I'm Vincent Franchini from Tumblr House, here with an autumnal Charles Coulombe.
Autumnal? Well, you know what? That is right. I do feel autumnal. Here in Trumal, the leaves are just beginning to turn yellow and, well, mostly yellow. Not too much in the way of red, a little red. The air is just cool and crisp. It rained yesterday. Autumn is definitely unwrapped. And I love autumn. It's true. It's my favorite season of the year, bar none. I love autumn.
Good.
I even love the pumpkin spice latte.
Oh, I love that. That's one of my favorite parts of autumn.
Yeah, mine too. Mine too. It's also the beginning, really, of the celebrative year, if you think about it, because you start out, you get the build up to Halloween, which, admittedly, starting in August is a little much, but it does remind one, especially through October, if you're in a warm climate like LA, it does remind one that there is cooler weather in other places. With the pumpkins and the autumn leaves that we almost never have, and the Indian corn and all that kind of thing. And then along comes Halloween and the trick-or-treating and all that. I have to admit, hot Halloweens are kind of annoying when they happen.
Mm-hmm.
And they do happen now and then.
Yeah.
But generally, the weather's begun to cool by Halloween. And I do so love trick-or-treating, I loved it when I was doing it. I love it now that, when I was on the receiving end, giving out the candy. And then, of course, dear old November, my birthday comes up. And then November the 11th, you've got Martinmas, which is also Veterans Day and Armistice Day, Remembrance Day. And then your last Sunday your last Thursday, I guess, in Canada would be Thanksgiving, but your last Sunday in October on the old calendar is, of course, our delightful Feast of Christ the King. And, well, that's October, and Halloween, yes, I got ahead of myself. Halloween, All Saints, All Souls, I really, really love. Here in Austria, the cemeteries all get lit with these brilliant candles. I mean, it's just all throughout Central Europe and France and in Italy. The cemeteries, they become wonderlands of light at night.
Wow.
They're just amazing. And then after Veterans Day comes the big build-up to Thanksgiving Day, which, the Puritan element I don't care for, but I love turkey, and I love pumpkins, pumpkin pie, and all that stuff. And I love families gathering together. And then, of course, November the 30th, St. Andrew's Day. All the Scots can have their St. Andrew's night dinners and things like that, which, if I were back in our part of the world on November 30th, I would make a beeline to the Tam O'Shanter on November 30th. And, well, then, we're up for Advent, the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, our American National Patronal Feast Day, which we should be celebrating the way the Irish do St. Patrick's or the way the Scots do St. Andrew's. And then, December 16th, the days begin the countdown to Christmas, and then Christmas at last. Dear old Christmas. And the days that follow through the Epiphany. The Epiphany itself, of course, and New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. Golly. All the way to Candlemas and Mardi Gras. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, it's wonderful just thinking about them. I mean, honestly, this is the time of goodwill, of sharing, of getting together with family and friends, of remembering, of nostalgia, a time for banishing sadness and gloom and every touch of greed.
Wait, what? What did you
I
say?
say it's a time to get rid of sadness and gloom and every touch of greed.
What's wrong with greed?
What do you mean what's wrong with greed? Greed's bad.
What?
Greed is bad.
Okay, let me.
Greed's horrible.
Okay, let me explain something to you, Charles.
Okay, explain.
Okay, greed is good. Okay,
Oh, really?
greed is right. Greed works. Okay, greed clarifies, cuts through, and captures the essence of the evolutionary spirit.
Oh,
Greed in all its forms has marked the upward surgence of mankind. Who are you to get in the way of the progress of mankind? Who are you?
I am Charles Coulombe of that ilk, a writer, an historian, a man who has seen what greed has done, who has seen what your evolution and your progress has done to society. It's turned everyone into a bunch of shape-shifting lizard people. Progress is bunk.
What are you talking? Greed has brought about the quality of life that we enjoy. Our quality of life has reached heights that our ancestors could never even dream of.
No, but they could dream of the typhus that's thronging in Los Angeles streets.
We live better than the kings of old ever could. We are
For
going.
now.
What you need to understand, Charles, is that we are going to fashion this world in our own image. Okay?
We have.
And it's going to be a great new world.
We have fashioned in our own image. That's why it stinks.
Wow. Ungrateful.
Proof of the pudding.
Ungrateful.
You bet. Proof of the pudding. You take a drive down to L.A., down to downtown. See all them homeless people. There's your brave new world.
That's such
Beverly
a small
Hills.
segment of the population.
Go to Beverly Hills. See all the head shops and the psychic temples and the moronic employers. See, if you will. Don't take my word for it. Go to Vegas. Yeah.
City of Lights.
So it's City of Lights, all right. City of venereal diseases. No, I tell you, the whole thing is going to hell in a handbasket, and greed is the cornerstone. You're right, though. We have refashioned this world in our own image, and our own image stinks. So there.
I don't know,
I
Charles.
mean that in the nicest way possible.
I don't know, Charles. I think you're missing out. You get your ticket now, otherwise you're going to miss the bus.
Thank gosh. I mean, I'd hate to get on a bus that's going to go over a cliff.
Wow. Well, that just...
You come across just like a lizard yourself, kind of like a gecko.
Ha 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 ha. Gosh. Wow.
And you know something? You notice that the gecko, he started out with this big Wall Street wizard. He ends up as the cartoon pitchman for insurance.
Really? Oh, the gecko. I get it. Wow, that was okay. Okay. I was like, Michael Douglas pitches insurance? What's going on here?
No, the gecko pitches insurance. Although we have to admit something to you. Who does his voice? It's actually Michael Douglas.
No, it's not.
Yeah, he had to take whatever work he could find.
The gecko has a thick Australian accent.
I know. Michael Douglas is a very talented voice actor.
That's some fake news right there. You just make it up as you go. Do you work for CNN? Gosh.
I'd love to. I'd love to. They'd pay me more than you do, I'll tell you. And I'd get to eat in the executive dining room. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Talking about greed. You bet. I'd like some of them cutlets that you guys have. Yeah. Deep fried. Sure.
You know what? I'm going to jump to one of these questions right now, just as to respond.
Just as you can.
Yeah, from Joseph. He says, Charles, being a low-level Tumbler House employee, do you mow the lawn in suit and tie?
Never, but I do occasionally bust some of the commissary tables in it.
You better. You better.
Well, I
That's
know I better.
policy
That's right.
right there.
It's only your threats to keep me doing it. That and when I have to spot Zelda.
Did you say Zelda?
I said Zelda.
Who is that?
See, you don't even know your own employees. Boy, talk about being out of touch. Zelda, the commissary lady cleanup gal.
Yeah. Oh, Zelda. Oh, got it.
Zelda. Zelda Trinikiak. Are we ringing any bells here? She's been working for you for what, 17 years? We don't remember her? Very nice.
Oh. Yeah,
Poor Zelda.
I have a vague familiarity with her.
Yeah, well, let me tell you something. You're lucky she doesn't work in the executive dining room. Your regular table would be covered with moss. All she needs is that you don't even remember her name. That's great.
Okay, so
What else we got?
um, just a plug for our Patreon again. We have several tiers of Patreon. We have the gardeners, custodial
Yes.
crew, secretarial
Yes.
pool,
Yes,
mailroom clerks,
indeed.
and the top floor executives. So join up now. A lot of benefits. Get your questions asked. Get exclusive content to the for the pre-show. Get discounts. All that good stuff.
You know the one level that's not available?
Go ahead. Okay, sure. The 13th floor. What?
That's right. It's not available. That level of patronage is not open to the public or anyone else. It doesn't even exist according to the IRS.
Well, it adds some mystique for this October.
Well, that's true. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to get in on the 13th floor, you can't. And if by some little chance you do, you won't be getting out again.
Nope.
So, what else you got?
Okay. Well, before we get into memes or questions, you had something you wanted to talk about.
I did have something I wanted to talk about, and I actually remember what it is, which is even better.
Yeah.
I won't take a lot of time, but I do need to mention something, and that is that a good friend of mine named Gary Potter is at the moment somewhat under the weather. And I would very much request your prayers for him, ladies and gentlemen. Gary is a veteran Catholic journalist, an old friend of mine, really something of a mentor in my field. He certainly helped propel my first book into success by plugging it in his column. And I didn't know him at the time. He read the book and liked it. Gary is an amazing man. He was a member of not one, not two, but three famed literary circles, because when he was a young boy in the Bay Area, a young teenager, he hung out with the Beats, Kerouac and Cassidy and Ginsberg and all those guys. And then he's actually mentioned anonymously in Dharma Bums, for those of you who know that book. Then he went to Paris. He had joined the Merchant Marine. It was a Merchant Marine for 2 years, and then read in, I think it was, oh golly, what's his name? Henry, I can't believe I can't remember his name. His brother wrote the variety, Henry James. Henry James, he wrote in a novel that if a young man hasn't lived in Paris by the time he's 26 or whatever age it was, he never will. And Gary was that age, so he thought, well, time to go to Paris. So he went to Paris. And he lived there for 4 years. He started his entry into the church there. But he also was in a literary circle around people like Henri Massy and Marshall Wagon and people like that. Quite an interesting bunch, Guy de Montelon. And then he moved back to the States in '66, and he became an editor of Triumph magazine, the very famous Triumph magazine. And he knew L. Brent Bozell and Fritz Williamson and Thomas Molnar and Folly Clinton, a lot of people like that then. And he did various things in the Washington area from that time until the present. But he's not a kid anymore. And so just say some prayers for his good health, if you would. I owe a lot to him, and the only way I can really pay him back is by soliciting prayers on his behalf.
Okay.
So, what do we got in the way of questions?
Okay. Well, okay. Transitioning from a very somber note to something more jovial, perhaps.
Happy
Memes.
days are here. Oh, memes. Yes. We got to do memes.
Okay. First one. This is from Aaron Hook. Sic semper tyrannis. A tyrant dies. A republic ends. An empire is born. Starring Vincent Franchini as the tyrant Julius Caesar and Charles Coulombe as that hero of liberty, Brutus.
I love that.
Very
and
happy
I look
Brutus.
so happy in that thing, don't I?
Yeah.
Happy Brutus. Caesar looks a little unsure of himself, but Brutus looks happy.
Yeah.
These are the memes of production.
Yeah. Yes, they are. Okay, next one. Now, this isn't a meme. I just want to talk about this because this was such a great tweet. You know, most tweets are just kind of noise, or some have some good stuff, but this one to me was very thought-provoking. From JJ. This was a while ago. He did this in May. It's a shame how all of the strapping young Catholic bros of this website continue to argue with each other over aesthetic trifles. They could be spending their time forming street gangs to defend the elderly women who pray rosaries outside of abortion clinics.
I like that.
I like
that a lot.
Because there is a multi-layered effect here. Because the first, when you read this, it's like, haha, that's cute, that's funny. But then you stop to think about it, and it's like, wait a minute. There's something very true here. And I think, if the faith was real to us, I think our Catholicism in action would resemble something more close to this. We would be more militant in this way if the horror of abortion was real.
Yeah.
So
that's true. It's true. It's very true. And also, he's really calling for his peers to sort of pull out of themselves and try to get more active in the world around them.
Yeah, well, see, that's the other thing too. Is so much of the internet, that's not real activism, just kind of talking. It's just banter.
Yeah.
The real thing is about going out and really,
helping real people,
getting really involved, getting on the front lines, as our pastor would say.
And the time now is to do it when you're young, kids. I know that my demographic is primarily 18 to 35. You know who you are. Well, you're the future, kids, and the future is now.
Yeah. Okay, we've got two more related memes. All right. From Jolly Jacobite, 2 tickets for the Joker, please. Now this was very prevalent. I guess they would show pictures of all these different white guys and say this. I guess everyone's hyped. I think Joker comes out this week.
Does it?
Yeah. So are you hyped, Charles? Are you hyped? Are you excited? Have you been waiting for this movie?
Not excessively. Who plays the Joker?
Joaquin Phoenix.
Oh gosh.
Which I think that's a pretty good cast in a way, to be honest. For what I think they want to do, because I've seen him play Dark.
Oh
before.
Yeah.
He looks really I think the one movie called The Master, where it's Philip Seymour Hoffman, and it's kind of like a cult, and that was really dark. He portrays a super dark side of humanity. I thought Her was especially dark too, in its own way.
And don't forget, his brother was the late lamented River Phoenix, who came to such a terrible end.
Yeah, I'm familiar. I'm very familiar.
Yeah, So I'm sure he's got a dark side to draw from. You know,
Yeah,
he was
I
raised.
think he did a blasphemous movie on Jesus. I think he played Jesus. I was looking him up on IMDb, and uh, yeah, he's an atheist in all
Well,
of
he
his
was
mind.
raised in a strange cult by very peculiar parents.
I'm sure.
You know, the children of God. That's why all of his family have odd names. His name was originally not Joaquin, but Leaf.
River
His
and
brother
Leaf.
was,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Understanding now,
yeah.
just a little touch of the '60s.
That's sad. But my favorite role, I think my favorite Joaquin Phoenix role is actually Gladiator. In his
Huh.
Gladiator movie, where he plays um, Marcus
The young,
Aurelius' son.
yeah, the young twisted fellow.
He does a good villain. I thought that was an effective villain.
You know what I liked him best in was as the younger brother in Signs.
Really? Wow. He that was kind of a youthful, innocent sort of. I don't remember too much standing out from that one.
Well, I do because he was the uncle, and of course, being an uncle myself, uh, his relationship with his niece and nephew was fascinating to me
Interesting.
because it was very well done. You know,
Oh, he's a good
uh,
actor.
oh, he's an extremely good
Yeah.
actor, and he caught, especially the mother is dead and the father is basically whacked as a result of it,
Yeah.
and the uncle is basically trying to help the kids stay sane,
Yeah.
which is something that dutiful uncles sometimes find themselves doing.
Yeah. So I yeah, so it'll be interesting. I don't know if I'll see it in the theaters or wait for DVD, but
I'll probably see it on the airplane coming back.
oh, okay.
Yeah, when I fly back in December, that's when I will probably see both Downton Abbey and The Joker.
Yeah. Well, very good. Okay, one more meme, kind of related, kind of
Kind of.
from Dante. We live in a democracy, and then Charles in Joker makeup.
I say
Wow,
kind of related.
that's pretty scary. Because
Yeah, it's pretty dark.
I can see you doing that, like in a sense, like
Oh, yes. Believe it or not, the Joker was a character that I could easily imagine playing. But I wouldn't, of the three in the recurring series, um, thinking of Heath Ledger, Joaquin Phoenix, but it's Jack Nicholson's performance that I would have been most drawn to imitate.
they're all good in their own. Well, I mean, both. I mean, I don't like I don't like comparing them
No, they're
because
very different.
they're different. They tried to do different things, and they were both great.
Yeah, I mean Nicholson tried to stick very closely to the comic book,
Yeah,
and that's what I would do
yeah,
because I grew up on the comic book. You
yeah.
know, you gotta remember that I grew up reading the Silver Age DC comics,
Hmm.
so I'm so old. I remember when they were 12 cents a piece.
I'm gonna do a random tangent on this because that just made me remember something Bill Maher said. I think he got a lot of heat, Bill Maher,
Yeah.
for criticizing comic books and how uh, it sort of fosters uh, adults who never grow up.
Well, I think a lot of what Bill Maher is in favor of fosters adults who never grow up. So I think
Ooh.
the pot is being called black by the kettle.
I like
Uh,
that.
yeah, I mean, I disagree completely. I think that, I mean, I'm not a comics aficionado now. I don't think I've read one since I was 14.
Yeah.
Um, but they were great. Of course, I learned to read on them. My dad had a collection of these old EC comics. Now, mind you, the DC comics from the 60s, because it was the 60s I'm speaking about, I read those. But my dad had a collection of these horrible things in the 50s. EC comics with like Tales from the Crypt. I mean,
What's
awful,
EC?
awful stuff. What's that?
EC? What is E?
EC. I don't know what it stood
Oh,
for,
okay.
but it was they were just gruesome things. I loved them. I ate them up,
Wow.
and I learned to read English on them. At the beginning of the summer, I could barely read, and by the end of it, I was reading American Heritage magazine,
Yep.
and I owe it all to comic books. So, Bill Maher, grow up.
Good. I agree. All right. Let's go to the questions.
All right.
First question's from Waylon.
Hello, Wayland.
Hello, Charles. By the time you read this, God willing, I will either have already proposed or will be about to propose to my girlfriend. I already got her parents' blessing, and she's been expecting this, though she doesn't know exactly when I'm going to pop the question. Are there any interesting Christian traditions surrounding proposals and engagements that you could share? Do you have any advice for a couple preparing for Catholic marriage? Know of our prayers and kindly say a prayer for us. Update, in case you get this before you're able to answer it, the deed is done and she said yes.
Well, firstly, let me congratulate you both and wish you a long life and many children and much happiness together. Well, let me see. Where do I begin? Okay, for starters, unless her family are going to pay for everything, do not opt for an expensive wedding that you're paying for. Why? Because you don't want to start your married life with a huge amount of debt. And there is nothing sadder than a couple who go wildly into debt for a gigantic ceremony. Don't do that.
And honeymoon. And honeymoon.
Yeah, and honeymoon.
I know a lot of couples that, that's like their one biggest regret.
And don't do that. I remember, of course, this is a reasonable thing if you live in LA, but I was best man for a couple, and their honeymoon was to go visit the missions. They drove down to San Diego and then drove all the way up to Sonoma, visiting a mission a day, which you could do pretty easily in 3 weeks. So, which was they stayed in cheap places and all that, so it was fine. But I gave him a hard time. I said, "Oh, you're touring the missions, the Union Rescue Mission, the Midnight Mission, the Downtown Mission." He said, "No, not those." I said, "That's a very reasonable honeymoon. I mean, you not only do you get to see the missions, but you can get free food and lodging as well."
Wow.
But that might be too economical, touring the missions of that sort. But seriously, there are a number of things. You want to have an engagement party. Now, again, suit this. All your entertainment needs to be suited realistically to what you can afford. And if you're not well-to-do, think potluck, think BYOB, because the important thing is the celebration with loved ones. That's what you got to zero in on. Now, you should have an engagement party to announce the engagement to people. Again, depending upon what you can afford, but have some sort of a soiree for that. You should, of course, also have separate bridal showers, what they call in British Isles a hen party, and a bachelor party, bachelor dinner, stag party. Now, those parties are often given over to all kinds of abuse. Strippers of either gender, depending on, which it is, bachelorette parties with male strippers, etc. I think a bachelor party with male strippers would be just too weird for words. So don't do that. No strippers. What you want to go for is nostalgia. Because remember, again, every step of this way that I'm outlining, you got to remember what it is you're trying to do. For the groom and best man, or for the maid of honor and the bride, you're both celebrating and saying farewell to your single life and hello to your married life. So the both parties should be about remembering the past and encouraging the fellow for the present or the girl for the present. I have to admit, I've only been to a single hen party. Well, yes.
That's one too many, it seems. I mean, you not being
Well,
a hen, how do you get there?
Well, it's funny you should ask. The reason was that in Ireland some years ago, a very dear friend of mine was getting married. I was a groomsman. I wasn't the best man, but I was a groomsman. And his brother and I were detailed to deliver the whiskey for the hen party. This being Ireland, of course, the ladies were drinking whiskey. Whiskey. We carried up, like 5 or 6 boxes, big boxes of bottles of Jameson's. And so the bride's mother said, well, lads, what with you going to all the trouble to bring this stuff up here, you ought to sample what you brought. And Joe and I looked at each other and agreed that this was probably a wise idea. We should just have a quick one, and then be on our way. Well, that was the idea anyway. But instead, we had a number, and we started singing with the ladies, and Irish songs and all that, and telling stories and jokes. And before you know it, it was 2 a.m.
5 to 6 bottles. How many women were there?
Well, so there were 5 or 6 cases.
5 or 6 cases?
Yes. And there were about 12 women, I should say.
What?
12, 13. Yeah.
That's like more than a bottle per person, then.
You notice? It was a very uproarious party. It was a lot of fun. But it's the only hen party I've ever been to.
Gosh, those women must know how to hold their liquor or something. I don't know what's going on there.
So I do. It's called Ireland.
Wow.
And the funny thing was that the groom, he's a great guy. He's still a very good friend of mine. But when he gets drunk, he doesn't do anything. He just says, right, that's it, lads. I'm drunk. Good night. And he goes off and goes to sleep. That's it. End of story. So
that's ridiculous.
It's just the way he is. So we're sitting around, talking, and at the bachelor party, and I said, "All right, now that we're all here, let's tell Stephen drunk stories." Well, of course, there are none to tell, nothing to say. So we just stopped, and we all looked at him, and he turned red as a beet. And I said, you see, all these years you thought you were superior because you never acted like a moron under the influence. Now who's laughing? Yeah. And we all roared. It was a great time. And the funny thing about that particular thing, though, was that I had to do 2 bachelor parties in 1 week, one in Cleveland and one in Ireland. And fortunately, there was a day between them, between the weddings. So I flew to Cleveland. Wait a minute, how did I do that? No, I flew to Ireland. Yes, I flew to Cleveland. I did the bachelor party. Then I flew to Ireland. I did that bachelor party and then the hen party and then the wedding. The next day, I flew to Cleveland and did that wedding.
They paid your way?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, gosh, wow.
That must have been popular guy.
That must have been a while ago. That must have been exhausting.
It was. It really was. It was 2003. It was very exhausting, but it was worth it. Great memories.
Okay.
And and the funny thing is, I remember thinking at the time that in the normal run of things, the weddings would have been on the same day, and I've had to choose. But no, they were a day apart. So I was able to put everything and do everything and disappoint no one. So, at any rate, my advice is make sure when you're choosing your best man, Waylon, remember that your best man is the witness to your marriage. And your relationship with him, I presume he's very close to you, or you wouldn't be asking him to be best man. But your relationship will change, because with any luck, your wife will be your best friend henceforth. Now, the other thing about it, too, is that he, if he plays his cards right and wants to stay part of your life, is really going to have to like your wife and get along with her. It's very important. And he's going to have to try to be the friend, not just of you anymore, but of the marriage. It's very important. So that if you're annoyed at some point in the future and want to complain about what your wife has done, it'll be up to him, if he's smart, to say, well, hold on there. Is it really all her? Because the truth of the matter, Waylon, is that in marriage, it's rarely all the one or the other. But it's very easy to forget that. So don't. The wedding itself, as I say, save as much money as you can, but make it as formal as possible. Morning coats, etc. If you can't afford them, you can't afford them. But if you can, do. And the same. Don't feel obligated to get a fancy hotel if all you can really afford is a church hall. Because the money is much better spent on having a comfortable first year as a married couple than blowing a ton of dough and biting your fingernails over money. Nothing breaks marriages up more than financial issues. Remember that. So, go easy on the wedding, have the best time you can. And, don't be ashamed, don't be afraid to do, as I say, potluck, BYOB, people doing things. I remember one wedding I was at, I was best man. And the groom, in order partly to help a friend out who was starting a catering business, and also to save money, had a friend who was starting a catering business do the catering. Well, that was fine until he told him at the reception that he wasn't going to be washing the dishes, which had been rented.
Wow.
Yeah, wow, indeed. So the groom calls me over because as best man, I'm supposed to handle everything, right? And he explained what's happened. And I said, don't worry about it. You just go on your honeymoon. It'll be taken care of. And then I got together with the groomsmen and the bridal party, the maids, and the maid of honor, and all that. And I explained the situation. And so when the wedding reception was over and they'd gone off to the hotel, preparatory to the honeymoon, and the band had left and everyone else was gone, we turned into a wash party. And we took off our finery and we washed dishes until they were all clean. And there were a lot of dishes. And then we drove them to the place they'd been rented from. And that was that.
Okay. Just for everyone's reference, how many times have you been a best man?
16.
16. Okay.
I'm going to start hiring out professionally. But if you don't know me and you want my services as your best man, you have to pay for everything. You got to fly me out there. You got to put me up. You got to rent my morning coat. Well, actually, I got one of my own, so I'll do that myself. Yeah.
Okay. There's what about the first half of this question? Are there any interesting Christian traditions surrounding proposals and engagements?
There are. I can't think of any at the moment, but there are.
I know Chivalry, the book I plugged last week, has a bunch of what a knight would do. There were a lot of things to that process.
Oh, tell me.
Oh gosh,
You don't remember?
I remember there was a huge night of prayer.
Well, yeah, you spend a night of prayer, and also, another thing that has been lost sight of. There's a prayer in the Roman Rituale for the blessing of the marriage bed. So, if you don't do it on the honeymoon, you might very well, when you come home, have the priest in to bless your bed. And another thing you might consider doing once you've had your first kid is, if you can get a hold of a traditional priest, is have the churching of women for your wife.
What?
It's a prayer and a blessing for women who've just given birth to children.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So, but pick up Chivalry, and you'll be able to read all about what Don Vincenzo is talking about.
Yeah. Okay, next question from Scott Rupert.
Hello, Scott Rupert.
Charles, someone once told me that the Medici Pope Leo X caused the Reformation because he refused to listen to any of Martin Luther's positions. He said that if Pope Leo would just have He said that if Pope Leo would have just accepted a few of Martin Luther's 95 theses, then Luther would have been satisfied and he would have ended his heresies. What do you make of this? I find it hard to believe that Luther would have ended his heresy that quickly if Pope Leo just accepted a few of the theses.
I think you're absolutely right, and I doubt very much that anything would have changed. I really do. I mean, Luther was willing to do all sorts of things, including break his vows, and dispense most of the sacraments. He was that much attached to his own views. So, no, I don't think so.
Yeah. Another example of a revolt that gets couched in terms of a reform.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And see, the problem when you use the phrase reform, the presumption is that what came before was not as good as what you're planning to do.
Exactly.
You better be sure that's true.
Yeah, that's what I told those two people who had a kick off last week off the board. Make sure you're on dangerous ground. You're on thin ice. Watch out. Be careful.
Yes.
But no, they didn't listen. They had to be all idealistic. Well, okay.
Yeah.
You get
At least they were greedy.
No, they were greedy with their reforms.
I thought greed was good.
Oh my gosh.
What? So you say greed is good, and then you punish them for being greedy. That doesn't make any sense at all. You're like a father who's giving mixed messages to his children.
You have to have power with the greed. You can't bite off more than you can chew.
Oh, I see. So in other words, greed is not good for for those who don't have power.
Yes.
All right, well, we got that settled. All right, what else we got? We answered the question. I mean, there's nothing to argue about that. Yes, all right, well. Okay, got that out of the way.
Okay.
That's beautiful.
What is the history of the sugar skull tradition in Mexico?
That's an interesting question, and unfortunately, I don't know.
Obviously, that's like sugar pops, the
little candies, the shape of skulls that Mexican kids eat around the Dia de los Muertos.
Yeah.
And the answer is I have no idea. I don't know where it comes from or how long they've been doing it, but I'll know it. Believe me, I'll know it by the time I go to bed.
Okay, in a related question, what is the history of the Angel of Death? Is the Angel of Death meant to be an evil figure or prayed to?
Well, the Angel of Death, I mean, there's no absolute revelation on whether the Angel of Death even exists. I mean, it's used sort of poetically in different places.
But he's referring to, don't some Spanish people do this on the Day of the Dead, or Mexicans?
Yeah, the Santa Muerte.
My reference point is that one intro scene on Breaking Bad where everyone's like crawling on their knees, and then they go to this weird, eerie shrine, and then they're like praying to, like, it seems like the Angel of Death.
Yeah, that's Santa Muerte. No, you don't want to. You don't want to do that. You don't want to pray to the Angel of Death. Trust me, the Angel of Death will come to you soon enough. Come to us all sooner or later. It doesn't need to be prayed to. Just
Stay away.
Don't just leave it alone.
Okay.
It'll take care of itself, and then eventually of you.
Okay. Okay, next question is from Christopher. Greetings, Charles and Vincent. I'm a huge fan of Off the Menu. I have a question on the mystery of faith, or memorial acclamation of the new Mass. Where does it come from historically, or is it even based on a historical rite? I heard it may have come from an Eastern rite, specifically one of the Syriac rites.
Well, that may be. I mean, a lot of the Eastern rites do have congregational responses to the words of institution. So that may be either where it came from or at least what inspired it. It wasn't a part of the Latin tradition, at least not for a long time, if it ever was.
Okay.
So there you go.
Okay, 2 questions from Tyler.
Okay.
Will Charles write a book about ultra realism? I enjoy reading your frequently asked questions on the subject, and if you wrote a comprehensive book on the subject, I believe many others would buy and learn from it a lot. In the present, more and more trads are looking at where the church started falling from truth, as the simple answer 1962 makes no logical sense, as Vatican II was the culmination of modernism, not the start of it.
Well, that's a good question, and the answer is if ever anybody pays me.
Okay. Right, Tyler's second question. This is a long one. This is a long question, so bear with me here.
All right.
As Charles is a historian, I know and trust his insight on many ages and events, but I do have to say, over the years from comments regarding World War II, it's clear that Charles has only learned the history the Allies taught. I'm offering Charles a goal, and that is to study World War II from both sides of the story. Will Charles read David Irving's works? Charles, as an adept historian, knows that history is not a one-sided affair. Does Charles know that the National Socialists banned Freemasonry, banned immoral movies, shows, and art, banned usury, banned unjust wages for just work, supported large families, supported the Catholic Church in building hundreds of new churches, banned degenerate art, banned atheist, Darwinist, and Freudian fake psychological work, loosened gun control, that 80% of the Axis were Catholics and the Allies were closer to 20%, that abortion was effectively outlawed? Does Charles know about the true history of why Germany invaded Poland? About the tens of thousands of Sudeten Germans who were actually murdered by the Polish? I know I'll not get a response on your videos, but I hope that you show this message to Sir Charles and he'll read about both sides of the war. I do understand that there were atrocities committed by the Axis powers, but there were far, far worse atrocities committed by the Russians and Americans, also known as the Eisenhower death camps and Holodomor, and the mass rapes of German women after the war. Whew. Do you know all those things, Charles? Do you even know?
Have
you looked at both sides, or are you just a one-sided historian? You need to get on this guy's level, Charles. I mean, you're not even close. You need to get good.
Can I answer?
Okay, fine. I'll let you answer.
That's very kind of you. Okay. Thank you. Firstly, he's presuming that I haven't read David Irving, but I have.
Seems like it. Oh, have you?
Oh, I have.
Oh, really?
He's also presuming. I mean, I've read books like I Was Quisling's Secretary. So? I've read a lot of books. Well, you know who Quisling was.
I'm not impressed so far.
Yeah, but you know who he was?
No.
No. Well, there you go. That's why I'm not impressed. You don't know, you can't be impressed.
I only know important things, though. So that means
you are Californian.
Because I don't know him, that means he's not important.
You are Californian. That's beautiful. That's great. You haven't lost the naive charm of the Golden State. That's lovely.
Thank you.
Well, suffice to say that Quisling was the puppet who ruled Norway for the Germans. And oddly enough, the man who was his secretary wrote the book, I Was Quisling's Secretary, in which he paints his boss as a hero. I've read a lot of things like that. Lots and lots and lots. And most of what our friend says are either partially or entirely true. But he leaves out some important chunks.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What could that be?
Oh, where do I start? First and foremost, if the Nazis had only killed 6 people, and those 6 people were St. Maximilian Mary Kolbe, St. Edith Stein, Blessed Titus Brandesma, Blessed Rupert Meyer, uh, Servant of God Arthur Delp, and oh gosh, what's his name? Yeah, somebody else. We'll just leave it at that. They just killed the 5 I named. They would not be nice people. Number one. Number two, they were in fact in favor of abortions and euthanasia and termination for the deficient. That's a matter of record. That's what they got into fights with people like von Galen over. Hitler hated the church and he hated the monarchy. How do I know this? Because I read Mein Kampf. It helps to read Mein Kampf. You'll find out where he was coming from. He hated Christmas. He liked Yule. He was very much in favor of animal rights. He was vegetarian. He was personally anti-Catholic, though he used the church where he could. He was very neutral on the gay rights issue. He was all in favor of them when they were useful. Ernst Röhm in the early days. And certain of the Ordensburgen supposedly used that sort of thing to build unity. In other words, apart from his Jewish problem, he was a very modern individual. He pushed all sorts of stuff that our modern Democrats push. I think they would be very much at home with him today if it hadn't been for the Jewish problem he had. And if I don't want something out of Hitler, I'm sorry, if I don't want something out of Hillary, why would I take it from Hitler? That doesn't make sense. Now, I understand the attraction that Hitler has for a lot of young people today because you basically are faced with an academic environment and a cultural environment where Nazism and fascism, which is a very different thing, are equated as seen as bad alongside marriage and family by the same moronic elite. And thus the temptation is to simply look at it and say, oh, well, they hate marriage and family. They hated the Nazis. Therefore, the Nazis must be good too. It's not quite that simple. Having said that, however, I think it is a horrific thing that we do not have the same visceral disgust we are taught to have for Hitler, that we don't have it for Stalin and for Mao. Stalin, of course, definitely murdered far more people than Hitler did, and Mao murdered more people than Stalin did. The only reason why we don't have, or we're not trained to have the same loathing of them, is because Stalin was our ally, and Mao, well, we made money out of Mao, so that's all right. But so there you are. I mean, I've read Irving, and I certainly don't dismiss him the way a lot of people do. I've read a lot of other pro-Axis writers, but the problem with the Nazis for me, is with the communists, as with the regimes we live under now, is that they all have the same view, ultimately, despite the differences, of man, God, and the universe. And that view I hate. Man derives his dignity as a child of God from being created by God. Not some spirit of the people or the race or the nation or the class, the proletariat. No. From God. And not just any God, not the God of Jefferson or the deities of the Hindus, but God the triune of Christian faith and Catholic worship. And that's all there is to that.
Okay. Okay. Next question is from Theo. Could you expound on the work and thought of the historian Christopher Dawson? What can his work tell us about how a Catholic should look at history? I found the way that he sees the entirety of human history through the lens of the Incarnation profound.
That's a very good question. During the middle of the 20th century, even toward the beginning, you had historians like Spengler, like Toynbee, like Dawson, who tried to make out of history an organic whole, not simply a random turn of events, and tried to discover historic laws, as you might say, about the rise and growth of civilizations and peoples and so forth. Theo is absolutely correct in characterizing Dawson as very profound, and indeed, he too sees human history as a coherent whole, but with the Incarnation as both the point and the prism through which we have to view it. What can I say? But I agree.
Okay. Random mention or shout out to Solange Hertz, because I like her view of history too. It's very, I don't know, it's dramatic, because she sees history as a prize fight for souls between Our Lady and the devil.
Which is absolutely true. And it's saying the same thing as I said earlier tonight. Or not tonight, but I've said it before. History is the working out of the divine will against a backdrop of innumerable fallen and free wills.
Yeah.
And that what all three of us are saying is that history is a supernatural drama.
Yeah.
It's not simply a human comedy.
And one of the things she says that I like is, how things looked so bad with the Reformation. How many souls were lost? The million. And Our Lady basically one-upped that. Said, okay, this many souls are lost. I'm going to reveal one half of the world to the other. And that new world, will be Catholic.
And so it was. Yeah.
When is Columbus Day? Columbus Day is coming up.
October 16th.
There you go.
Forgot to mention it during my mention of the holidays. But October 16th, not Indigenous Peoples Days, not cut a heart out of your neighbor day. Columbus Day.
Yeah.
In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue.
Yeah. We have an article on our blog. I extracted it from one of Hertz's books. I think it's On the Contrary. On Christopher Columbus. I'm going to promote it on that day, but her point with Columbus is very important because she cites that liberals see it, the discovery of the New World, as an inevitability. And it was just random. Okay, this guy discovered the New World. Inevitable, random, happened to be a Catholic guy. And she says, no. God is in charge of such matters. No. It is not just some simple random thing that happened. It was very intentional and purposeful, as you say, part of the divine plan. So, okay. Next two questions are from Brian. Okay. Our last two questions are from Brian. Yeah, so these last two questions. Charles, why did Mary and Joseph not know to look for Jesus in the temple? And why did they not understand that he must be about his Father's business?
I don't know. I wasn't there.
I could be completely 100% wrong, but on my meditation of this mystery, I've come up with something in terms of that. I don't. It could be totally wrong, so pardon me if it is. But what I like to think is that the purpose of that is to show that you don't need to understand. In as long as you abide by, and do your best to navigate, because and I say this particularly with regards to some of these questions about, like, oh, how does evolution jive with dinosaurs, and how do dinosaurs jive with the Garden of Eden, and I map this all out in a scientific way. And I always say you don't need to understand in order to acquiesce to and surrender yourself to God. You don't need to map out every little thing like that.
No, and also an important thing to bear in mind is that Our Lady and Joseph were very human.
Yeah.
And why did they not look in the temple? Now, again, I don't know. I wasn't there, but presumably there were a lot of people in the party. They all went off. And then they noticed that he wasn't with them. So they retraced their steps.
Yeah.
And found him instructing the scholars of the law.
And there's a little bit, again, with the lack of understanding. There are several. I guess there's at least one other time where Mary doesn't understand.
Yeah.
And that is the Annunciation. She says, "How can this be, since I do not know, a man?" But even though she didn't understand, she had faith, and she trusted, and she said, "Let it be done to me according to God's will."
Yeah, and another funny thing about that is that she was. You notice the longer she was with him, the more confident in a sense she becomes. So we don't really see her after the flight into Egypt until the marriage feast of Cana, where she takes charge.
Yeah.
And then he says, he says to her, "Woman, what is this to thee and me?" And she doesn't respond to that. She just turns to the servants and says, "Do whatever he tells you."
Yeah.
So in that period during which she had raised him, she seems to become a much more forceful person.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know. As I say, I wasn't there. What's the other question?
Wait, one other additional thing, just to personalize a little bit more, so that people think about this. Because we always ask this about our own lives and our own crosses. Like, we don't understand. Like, why has this happened to me? Why am I suffering through this? Why do bad things happen to good people?
Especially me.
Yeah, why do I have this affliction? See, I mean, so Mary suffered too. I mean, her distress over Jesus. So it's one of those things where you don't understand, but you keep going, and you do your best, and hopefully you eventually overcome. Okay, last question for today from Brian. Charles, I feel myself drawn to many different devotions. The Sacred Heart, the Precious Blood, Our Lady of Sorrows, and Christ the King all hold great appeal to me. Should I choose only one to develop deeper, rather than spreading myself thin? How might one foster devotion to Christ the King? Seems like this would have spread more were it not for Vatican II. It is an antidote to the malaise of our times, and ironically, in a sense, a modern devotion, though of course, like all sound doctrine, with ancient roots.
Well, that's a very good question. It's one that I've often wrestled with myself for myself. But first and foremost, remember the rosary should be part of everybody's devotional life. That's sine qua non. And I would say the same for the Sacred Heart. But you'll find, as you get further into them, that other things naturally develop out of them. So devotion to the Sacred Heart will make you think of the Immaculate Heart. Devotion to the Sacred Heart will make you think of the Precious Blood. Devotion to the Kingship of Christ will make you think of the Queenship of Mary. They're not separate and in competition with each other, and none of them are in competition with the Eucharist. They're all bound up. Proof of the pudding is that one of the ways to celebrate the Feast of Christ the King is by making the consecration to the Sacred Heart by Leo XIII. So one way to honor Christ the King, bearing in mind the whole notion of the reign of the Sacred Heart, which is the kingship of Christ. Do the enthronement of the Sacred Heart in your house to show that Christ is king in your home. Do the consecration, as I've said. Celebrate Christ the King, the feast day. If you're fortunate to have a parish where your priest will listen to you, suggest a procession in honor of Christ the King, with or without the Blessed Sacrament. It'll interest you to know, perhaps, that under the Nazis in Germany, Christ the King processions became very common as a way of showing that Christ was more important than any other government, any other political figure. And given that we, Pace Tyler, given that we're under a regime that's very similar to our Nazi friends, probably the more Christ the King processions, the better. It's interesting, also speaking of the connection between devotions, that my what I consider one of my home parish churches, Blessed Sacrament, Hollywood, because I had my first communion there, is sponsoring a Christ the King procession down Hollywood Boulevard this year.
Okay.
So, if ever there was a place that needs to be reminded that Christ is King, it is Hollywood Boulevard in dear old Hollywood, California, one of my 2 hometowns.
There you go.
You know the other hometown?
What, Monrovia?
No.
New York?
The Big Apple, yeah, Manhattan. The island upon which I was born. Soon to be 59 years ago.
There you go.
And next year, the 60th anniversary of JFK's election, it'll be the 60th anniversary of my birth, my 60th birthday, the big 6-0. It's coming up, ladies and gentlemen. Where will I spend it? Will it be here in the beauties of Trumau in the depths of the old empire? Will it be in Manhattan, the place where it all happened, the Big Apple, Gotham? Or will it be in the land I've spent so many years in, L.A., the big nowhere, the city that never lets you forget where you are, not even for a second? Yes, 3 possibilities, ladies and gentlemen, or maybe 4. Maybe it'll be London. Wouldn't that be something? A big blowout at the Savoy. That'd be grand. Or Paris at the Ritz, the Place Vendôme. Oh my God! Have dinner at Maxime's, ladies. In New Orleans. Yes, these are all possibilities, ladies and gentlemen. Anything you all want to contribute to, you send in that cash. And whoever sends in the most determines where the party is. And all the world is welcome.
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's
what do you
true.
mean?
I think you're
No?
going to two-time. You're going to two-time people. You're
Oh,
going to
how's
have
that?
one part. You're going to do it like the wedding situation. It's like, well, wow, these people are giving me money to go to Paris. I love Paris. Oh, let me go to Paris. Okay, next day. Oh, wow, in England, this is great. And then go over to the States.
All right.
That's what it sounds like to me.
If that's what it takes to please my public, you know what? I'm willing to do that, okay? Yeah, because that's how I feel about the people who make you, me, and everyone in Tumbler House able to survive. That's what I will do for these people. That's how dear they are to me. So all of you, all across this great, wonderful globe of ours, this brilliant United Nations of joy in which we live, just know, wherever you want the 60th, I'll be there. You put it together, you fund it, you fly me out, I'm ready. Shanghai, Copenhagen, Rio de Janeiro, Buenos Aires, the sky's the limit. Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here for you on the Big 6-0.
There you go, Charles. See, that's kind of more of the attitude we're looking for at Tumbler House. We're looking for opportunists. We're looking for people. We're looking for people that know how to hustle.
I'm not hustling. I'm not an opportunist. I am offering my adoring public the world over the chance to help me celebrate my 60th birthday. Be it in Auckland or Cape Town, New Delhi, Calcutta, Nairobi. I don't care. St. Petersburg, Lisbon, Havana.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about New Orleans?
Sure.
Okay.
Mexico City.
What about Pittsburgh?
Definitely.
Definitely, you're always
Yes.
dumping on Pittsburgh.
I'll party in Pittsburgh. I don't care. Philadelphia, Washington, D.C. I'm there for you guys. You name it, I'm there. Chicago, Boise, Hayden Lake, I know. I mean, listen, you put together the thing, you make the arrangements, you make it possible for me to be there, and I'll be there for you.
Okay.
This is the big 6-0.
All right.
And
Charles.
not just my 6-0, President Kennedy's 60th. The 60th anniversary of the beginning of Camelot. Come on, guys. You know, JFK, Jackie, the Rat Pack. I mean, Marilyn Monroe. Happy birthday, Mr. President. I mean, yeah. I'll have you know that on my birthday, about 5 years ago, maybe 7, I was in Orlando, Florida. And I was, oh no, not Orlando, I'm sorry. I was in Palm Beach, Florida. And they had a Marilyn Monroe reenactress. And she sang Happy Birthday to You exactly the way Marilyn Monroe had sang it to President Kennedy. True story. It was pretty bizarre. It was weird, in fact. It was just straight out strange. But you know what?
What?
If people want to help me celebrate my birthday that way, Vegas. I'll even go to Vegas. You know, the Sahara, the Sands, you name it. We'll do the Rat Pack, kids. Whatever you want to do, I'm up for it. Edinburgh, Oslo, Helsinki, Minsk.
It reminds me of a comment, by the way. You're on the Kennedys. We got a comment from Patty Leather, and he says, I disagree with Charles. The Kennedys are American royalty, and they are a great family. Oh, you two seem to be in agreement right now.
Yeah. Well, that's one way of looking at it. Yeah. Anyway, suffice it to say that regardless of their innumerable personal foils and foibles, I was born the day he was elected. That's my great claim to fame. I don't have much others, so I've got to milk it for all it's worth. And I feel the same way about JFK that I do about FDR.
Okay.
He had 3 initials. Yes.
Okay.
Gotcha there, smart one.
Well, there's a couple. There's LBJ.
Yes. LBJ, FDR, JFK. Who else you got?
I guess that's it.
That's it.
Okay.
That's it. All the way with LBJ. Hey, LBJ, how many kids you killed today?
What?
Yes.
Oh, I guess that was one of those. Yeah, that's a boomer thing, I guess.
Yes, it was an anti-war thing. It was up there with, gosh, my mind's gone. I can't remember what I was going to say. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm too much of a boomer to really remember anything
Out
anyway.
of the closet and into the street?
No. It was, hey, ho, ho, Western culture's got to go.
Wow. Glad I'm not part of that generation.
Well, I don't have a choice.
Nice to be grandpa millennial instead of baby boomer.
Well, I'm a junior ride along. They took me to places I didn't want to go.
All right. Okay, book of the week.
Oh, what do we got?
Jumped the gun a little bit, but Sean Leslie's Ghost Book.
Oh, yes.
This is one of Tumblr House's best books. It's one of the books I'm most proud to publish. This is a classic. This is an essential read for Halloween. These basically it's Catholic ghost tales.
Yeah.
of ghosts. You have various ghosts who are, as Sean Leslie would say, they're sacrament seeking, and
Yep.
others that are repulsed by the sacraments. That's interesting how, there's a relationship going on there. It's like,
Um,
it's funny how that works.
some are going one way, others another way.
Yeah. Yeah, so various Catholic figures, prominent Catholic figures have, I think, praised the book. I know Christine Niles has, big
Yep.
time, from Church Militant. I'm told Jimmy Aiken has, but I can't confirm. But I'm told on like his radio show that he has read it and he did enjoy it. But I can't 100% confirm that. I hope that's true.
And it's a tremendous work of scholarship, and it's really, really important when Halloween comes along to bear this in mind, because remember, Halloween is the beginning of that short period we call Hallowtide, made up of Halloween, All Saints, All Souls, I suppose even to some degree St. Hubert's Day, the last day, the third, the patron of hunters, which is another feast I should have mentioned earlier that I love. Anyway, get ready for Hallowtide, because you know what everybody is fond of saying this time of year. This is the time of year when the veil between the two worlds becomes very thin. You hear variations on that all over the place. And I'm sure it's true. So, in the light of that, get Sir Sean Leslie's Ghost Book. And it may scare you a little bit, but only a little.
Well, it's structured in a certain way. To me, it starts off, it's like, oh, these are cool ghost stories. Yeah, these are pretty good. And then it's like, oh, okay. Kind of little, okay. It's like, these are the types of ones they should turn into movie form, and it would be pretty scary. But then I gotta hype up this last one, the last story. I don't even want to see that turned into me. That the last story is so powerful. It redefines evil. Like, yeah, I didn't know evil was that evil until the last story in that book.
Evil's pretty evil.
I mean, I couldn't even fathom. It was unbelievable. This book will leave an indelible mark on you. It will stay with you.
That's true.
I'm going to read it again. I'm going to read it again this month. This is one of those books that you reread, to be honest.
Oh yeah, you do. I mean, I first encountered it. I don't mind saying that I found it for Tumblr House.
Yeah.
I don't mind saying that.
I don't mind you saying that either.
But I first encountered it when I was in college at the Mexico Military Institute. It was in the library of the rectory of Annunciation Catholic Church in beautiful Roswell, New Mexico. Oh. And I asked Father Moynihan, the then pastor, if I could borrow it. And he said, yes, you can. That would be a good book for you to read. And I did. And it really... There are certain books, I mean, it's like you want to read Demoniality about fairies. That's the Catholic fairy book, in my humble opinion. You want to read Alois Wiesinger, the Cistercian, on occult phenomena. It's the Catholic book.
Watch out, occultist. Watch out. Mr. Occultist over here going hog wild on the occult stuff.
Yeah, it's because it's Halloween, and you need protection.
Oh, so then it's okay to be a cult.
That's right.
Whoa.
That's whatever you say.
I disavow.
You know, greed is a cult.
What?
Greed is a cultist.
Greed?
Yes, it's a cultist. Everyone knows that.
No, it's not at all.
Yeah, yes, it is. It's completely occultist. It's all. Everyone knows that.
The saints recommend you be greedy when asking for graces. They say you don't ask enough for people in general don't ask enough for graces from God. You got to be greedy. You got to ask for all the graces. What do you think about that?
I don't think Gecko was thinking about graces. I really don't.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Well, maybe not. I don't know. Well, who's to
No.
say? You know.
Well, who's to judge?
Yeah,
I know we can't. We're forbidden to by canon law.
that's right.
But at any rate, no. But the thing is, that in all these weird areas, there are certain definitive Catholic books that are the most authoritative, given either or both the preeminence of their author and or the treatment given the thing. And I really have to recommend. I really have to recommend Sir Sean Leslie's Ghost book.
Okay.
Well,
Okay, that'll do it for this episode. Any closing remarks, Charles?
yes, it is autumn. Say your prayers. Begin to pray a lot more for your dead because they're very close to you this time of year. Use that holy water and St. Benedict medals and all that sort of thing to drive off the dark, which is a very important thing. The church exists for two major reasons. One is the salvation of souls, which is the most important reason, even though nobody remembers it or cares. The other is to drive off the dark, which is the one thing people do tend to remember when the dark comes after them. As that meme says, it's easy to make fun of the church until there's a demon in your house. Then everything somehow changes.
Yeah.
And that this is a good time here to remember that. It's a time of year, when I have wild dreams. I see a lot of my dead this time of year in my dreams. I don't know if there's anything to them, but whether there is or there isn't, it certainly brings them all back very much to my mind. And of course, that's one of the things, ladies and gentlemen, that as we age, more and more of our beloved ones are dead. Parents and grandparents and relations of all kinds, friends, mentors, they all go. And the most wonderful thing we can do for them, and this is what we should remember this time of year, is we can pray for them. They can't pray for themselves if they're in purgatory. But we can pray for them. And the holy souls will also pray for us. They can't help themselves, but they can help us. So, in answer also to our friend earlier who was asking about devotions, another good thing to remember is that there's a reason why the church has different seasons. In some devotions, you might emphasize more at one season than another. This, and especially November, the month of the Holy Souls, is a great time to really get in to the Holy Souls. So, well, with that, speaking of souls, go ahead.
If it's Monday,
it's off the menu.
And the soul you save
may be your own. Take care, ladies and gentlemen.